So again, we know that you guys just have, who's like really exhausted right now? There's just something about driving, even though you're sitting still, that just for some reason wears you out. And we want to respect that as much as we can. We want you guys to be able to rest good and really enjoy the rest of today, because we have a long few days, and really a long summer, but especially a long next few days coming. But it is very important that on this first night of the summer, we talk about why we're here. We talk about what is going to be the kind of the general theme, the most important thing that we are hoping that everybody here walks away with this summer. And again, I'm Michael Cody. I've been the campus director at North Alabama for the last 3 years. I've been on staff with Campus Outreach for going on 8 years. I actually just turned 30 this year. That still feels really weird. My wife Megan is right over here. You put your hand up if you didn't see her already. We have been married. We'll be married 6 years in this coming July. We actually began our relationship on a beach project, right? So 2008. We both came down here as recent grads, and the rest was history. So magic really does happen at Beach Project, and it really might. Some of you guys, you might, it might be that summer for y'all. You never know. I don't want to put it past you. So we have our little boy, Noah Robinson. I don't think he's here. He was running up and down the aisle while Zach and Stephanie were speaking. I think he might have left now. He just turned 2. He is probably the most extroverted person on this beach project. Okay, so if you go tell him your name, he will remember it, I guarantee you. And he'll probably be able to tell you 15, 16 dinosaurs at the same time. And we actually have a second child on the way in October. So my wife is however many months pregnant she is. And so, man, we really do love Beach Project. There's a reason that we have been on staff for this long, and I don't really plan on leaving anytime soon. My story with Campus Outreach is I grew up in a home that I was churched. My parents were professing Christians, and for most of my life, I would have considered myself one, although for my whole life, my heart was far from the Lord until I got to Samford University, which is where I graduated from. And in my freshman year at Samford, there were 2 men who hung out in my dorm and started Bible studies with me and my friends. And they started sharing with me who Jesus was. They started explaining to me pieces of the Bible that I'd never seen before. And sometime my freshman year, around March, something just clicked, and I trusted and surrendered to Christ as my Lord and Savior. So that was my freshman year at Samford. I didn't go on Beach Project that first summer. I ended up going the following summer as a sophomore. And when I went on Beach Project, again, I was a very young, newborn Christian in a lot of ways. And that summer was so special and so significant for me, because that summer, again, very young Christian, and I was struggling with all kinds of doubts. I was doubting things about the Bible. I was doubting if it really was the Word of God. I was doubting things just about Jesus, about the faith, and really I was doubting whether or not I really was a Christian. I was coming into that summer with all kinds of doubts, all kinds of turmoil that were going on in my soul, and for whatever reason, God was so good and so gracious to use that first beach project that I was on in 2006 to really help me have assurance of where I stood with the Lord, as well as to give me a vision for what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which was share my faith and help guys grow the way that a few faithful men had helped me grow. And so that's a little bit of my background, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of that story with a lot of you guys this summer, and also learning more about your own story. But what I want to do right now is this. I want you to take just a second, and I want you to think about everything that it took to get you here. Okay, I want you to think about everything it took to get you here. Just all the decisions that you had to make, all the things that you had to say no to, all of the financial provisions, all of the hoops that you had to jump through to get here. Just take a second, just think about that. What was it? What were all the things that it took to get you to make this decision to invest 8 weeks of your life in this weird thing called Beach Project, where we stay at a ratty hotel, work jobs, and talk about Jesus a lot? What was it? What was it? Okay? Think about that. And now I want you to think, what did it take you to get to that point? So my guess is that a lot of you guys were probably like, what got you? Hey, you can go to the next slide, by the way. You can get the alcohol and drugs thing off from behind me. So what was it that got you to that point? My guess is that a lot of you are probably just like, man, there was just some people who invited me to go on this thing, and they helped me think through the options, and I decided that this was going to be the best option for me, and I decided to go. Okay, well, what got you to that point? Think about all the crazy things that happened to get you to that point. All the things that decided what college you were in. All the things that kind of went into deciding like what team you play on, or what fraternity or sorority that you're in, or what dorm that you live in. Just think about that. Think about all the different things that work together to kind of get you to the point where you met the people that helped get you down here this summer. Okay, now think about before that. Think about all the things that got you to that point. Think about all the things before you got to your school, right, that were deciding factors in getting you to North Alabama or West Georgia or Jacksonville State, right? Think about just all the different things that had to work together for you to make that decision to go to college in that place. You see, we could be doing this forever, right? We could always be going back to kind of reminiscing and thinking about just everything that has gotten us to this point right now. And here's what I'm going with that. Your life, have you guys ever seen like those big Persian rugs, those big, beautiful rugs in stores? You know how many millions and millions and millions of fibers it takes to make one of those things? Guys, in so many ways, those little fibers that make up a big Persian rug are like all those little things in your life. They're like all the different little moments, all the different little pieces, all the different people, just the different elements of your life that work together to get you to this point, right? That they are intricately woven together. In fact, you can't even really tell where one started and the other one stopped. All you know is that there were all these different little decisions and all these different little circumstances that kind of work together to get you to where you're at right now. See, in Christian circles and in biblical terms, we call that God's sovereignty. Now, that's a really big word, but basically what it's talking about is that everything in history and everything in your life was planned and designed by God. Nothing just happened. There's a great passage in Matthew 10:29 where Jesus is talking, and he says, there's not a sparrow that falls out of a branch in the forest without your Father decreeing it to happen. Right, so look, everything that happens in the world, everything that happens in your life has been designed and organized and called to happen by the King of the universe. And he has woven all of those different pieces of your life to get you to where you're at right now. Again, just think about all the people and all the circumstances that brought you to live in your hometown, and then to get you to your school, and then that got you involved with this ministry, and then got you right here this summer. It's unbelievable to think about. We probably don't think about stuff like that a lot, but so many things have gone into getting us where we're at right now. Guys, as staff, we really feel the weight of that. We really feel the weight of the intricate way that God has been just making your story part of his bigger story. Right? We really feel the weight of just all the different things that God has been working together to make your story part of his bigger story. We spent hours and weeks and even months planning this beach project. We actually started thinking about this thing back before 2016, the calendar turned, right? This has been going on for a long time, and we spent hours talking specifically about this generation that we work with, this generation of college students. What are the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities that this generation of students have? What are the typical struggles that this generation of students have post-college? What are the things that this generation of students that tends to happen in their life that cause them to, some of them even walk away from the faith after college? We spent a long time talking about this generation and how we can best meet the needs of this generation. And guys, I want to say this first. There are a lot of admirable characteristics about your generation. There really are. There are a lot of things that I truly do love and I think truly are good about this generation of college students. We are a people and a generation that are very community-oriented. We value relationships. We are very connected with one another. There is so much good that comes from that, probably more so than any generation before us. I think we're also a generation, we're not as materialistic as our parents' generation. Typically, money is not the deciding factor in most decisions in most college students' lives, right? There are more things that are more important to this generation of college students typically than money and things that might have motivated our parents' generation. And so there's so much that I think really is good about this generation. But I think there's a couple things that are really missing. And that's what we're hoping that this summer is used to meet. And the first thing is this. I think that by and large, our generation really has a very small view of God. I kind of call it, we kind of have the Tim Tebow view of God. It's not a knock on Tim Tebow, by the way. Just use an illustration. Y'all seen Tim Tebow play football, right? He's got the Philippians right here and the 4:13 right there. Have y'all seen that? Y'all know what I'm talking about on his eye black? Does anybody know Philippians 4:13 off the top of their head? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, okay? That's a great verse. Every verse in the Bible is a great verse, but a lot of the time, that verse is used in the context of sports to basically say, if I just try hard enough, I can win this game. Y'all understand that verse was actually written by a guy named Paul when he was in a prison about to die, talking about how in all of his circumstances, even the crappy ones that he was in that moment, he learned to be content. What he was saying was, I can do all things in the sense that I can have joy and peace even in the midst of terrible circumstances because of Christ who strengthens me. That has nothing to do with winning a football game at all. There's not even an application for that. Right? But I think a lot of the time, that is kind of this generation's view of God. We view God as he's there when I need him. He's a genie in a bottle. He's a buddy. He's a nice old grandpa that I can go visit from time to time and get what I want from him. We're not really connected to him. We don't really see God as connected to all elements of our life. A lot of the time we'll use the phrase, God is love. But what we mean by that a lot of the time is that God is there to make me feel good about myself. That's typically what we mean when we talk about that. But what about all the times in the Bible that you see God wiping out entire cities? How does that work in your worldview, right? If that's what you think. We have a very small view of God. When it comes down to it, I really believe that for this generation, the God that we worship is not the real God at all. I think it's a God who we have made in our own image, and I think it's a God who looks a lot more like us than the God in the Bible. He's just kind of like a glorified man. And I think because we often have a very small view of God, we also have a very small view of life. I think the vision for most college students now at our schools, and if this isn't you, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying generally, I think most people's vision is, I want to graduate, I want to start a career, I want to get married and have a family, and I want to do a little bit better than my parents. I think that's about the extent of most people's dreams when they're graduating college. And there might be some of you guys who are a little bit more ambitious than that. Maybe you want to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a professional athlete. But even that, you're wanting those things just so your life can kind of be comfortable and run the way that you want it. And again, I think that's just a very small view of life. I don't think that we dream very big as a generation. We'll get behind causes, but we'll never really sacrifice for those causes other than maybe retweeting or sharing something on Facebook. And I think really, guys, we just don't stand in awe very much. We are not truly amazed by very much. And I think a big reason for that is we have these things called cell phones, right? That we have access to every piece of information that's been available to every human in the history of the world that we can access within a matter of seconds, right? I think we have this false sense of power. I think that we have this false sense of control because we have the whole world in our hands. And I think we have a hard time seeing past what's right in front of us because we can't get our faces out of it. I don't think that we are awestruck very much. And I think the reason for that, guys, is because most of this generation, by and large, has not personally encountered the bigness of who God is. I don't think most people in our generation see their story ultimately as God's story. We haven't seen his glory. And I'm not talking about this like out-of-body experience. I'm talking about we have not seen his glory, and yet we have not had his word and the glorious truths that it talks about him pierce our hearts by and large as a generation. And so we're calling our beach project this summer Project Glory, because we want to see that start to change. If you have a Bible, if you don't, that's okay. I think, yeah, we do have it up on the screen. We're going to read a quick passage from Isaiah. Isaiah, he was a prophet in the Old Testament. He wrote about 700 to 800 years before Jesus walked the earth. What a prophet was, a prophet of the Old Testament was somebody who received the word from God and spoke it to the people. We don't have prophets the same way today because God's word is complete because we have the Bible now. Okay, and so, but back in the Old Testament, that's how God would speak to his people. That's how God would reveal new things to his people. He would directly speak to a prophet, and then the prophet would speak to the people. And the nation of Israel, which were the majority of God's people at the time, were Jews. Israel had fallen as a nation. They had a lot of evil kings. They had turned to a lot of idols. And basically, God brought a couple of foreign empires in to destroy Israel and enslave them. And Isaiah is a prophet in Israel during one of these times. This nation state that was called God's chosen people was overtaken by this powerful foreign enemy. And the book of Isaiah, in a lot of ways, it's a book of judgment. It's a book of judgment on Israel. It's also a book of judgment on other nations. But it's also a book of redemption. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And in chapter 43, which is what we're going to read, there's a lot of chapters right before about God's anger and God's judgment that's coming. But now we're starting to see the tide turn a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit about God's love in the midst of his anger. And I think this passage really sums up our hope for Beach Project really well. So let's read this, Isaiah 43, verses 4 through 7. Because you are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you, I give men in return for you, peoples in exchange for your life. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east, and from the west I will gather you. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, do not withhold. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth, everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. One of the reasons I love that passage is because you actually hear the voice of God speaking in it. The I in that passage is the direct voice of God. The you is directly his people. I love that. And I think this passage demonstrates the three things that we as staff are praying more than anything for you this summer. The first thing that we're praying is that everyone here would become a child of God if you're not already. You see that in verses 4 through 6, where God talks about loving us, and he talks about bringing his sons from afar and his daughters from the end of the earth. I know that there are people here at Beach Project who are all over the spiritual map. I know that there are some people in here who are questioning if the faith is even genuine. I know that there are some people in here who would call themselves Christians, but might even soon find out that that's not true according to what the Bible says. I know there's probably some of you who've been Christians for about 5 minutes, right? And there's probably some of you who've been walking with Jesus for many years, and you are welcomed here. And we have designed the summer for you wherever you're at, because we remember God's intricate design in bringing you here. But I really believe, guys, that there are many in here who are not yet children of God. Because, see, no one is naturally a child of God. Ephesians 2 says that. Ephesians 2 says that no one is born a child of God. We are naturally children of wrath, like it says in Ephesians 2. We are born with a sin nature. We are born under condemnation. We are born under God's judgment because of our rebellion and our disobedience to him. So we must become his children. There's something happening outside of ourselves. And I want you to hear this. And by the way, you're gonna learn how to work through that, kind of where you stand with the Lord tomorrow. Corbett's going to be leading us through, thinking through our own spiritual story. I want you to hear God's words to his people. Hear these words of deep love to his children. He says, because you are precious in my eyes. Guys, do you understand that no matter what anyone in your life has told you, the only one who really matters says that you are precious. The only one who really matters says that you are beloved. The only one whose voice really carries any authority says that you're worth it. It doesn't matter if your parents looked at you and said, you don't matter. And I hope that didn't happen for anybody in here, but I bet it did. But according to this passage, we are beloved and precious to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Because you are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you. I give men in return for you. You know what that's ultimately talking about? That's ultimately talking about God the Father giving his Son Jesus in return for us. God the Father sending his own Son to live an innocent life and then die on a cross, experiencing the wrath of God the Father in exchange for us. Because he loved us, he gave Jesus the punishment that we deserved. Because he loved us, he gave a man in exchange for us. Fear not, for I am with you. Guys, no matter how many times you felt alone, no matter how many times you feel like you're just moving through life independently, where you're in charge of your own well-being and your own destiny, God says he's with you. Bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. If you are a Christian, realize you're part of a huge family. Sons from afar, daughters from the ends of the earth. There's another picture of that in Revelation 7, by the way, that says that there's a multitude that no one could number from every tribe and tongue and people and nation. If you are a child of God, you are part of a multitude that no one could number. You have more brothers and sisters than you could possibly number. Just think about all the acceptance that comes with being part of that kind of family. Think about all the relational connectivity that comes with being part of a family like that. Think just how big of something that you're a part of just by being part of that family. Guys, that's the benefit that we have of being children of God, being delighted in and loved and honored by the King of Kings. And so that's our first prayer, is that no one will leave this beach project without becoming a son or a daughter of the King, without knowing that deep of a love. That delight in you, that though you and I were his enemies, he gave the ultimate man in exchange for us. The next thing we're praying for, and this is where the theme comes in, we're praying that everybody here begins to grasp God's glory. Back to what I said a minute ago, right? I just think we have a really small view of God typically. I really think that this is the missing part of life for most people. You see it right here, right in verse 7. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth, everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory. Have you ever wondered what you're made for? Have you ever wondered what the purpose of your life is? Guys, it says so right here. This is why you were made. You were made for his glory. You were not made to find the one. You were not made to work a dream job. You were not made to play professional sports. Those are all great things. If you get to do those things, great. If you receive those gifts, great. But ultimately, you were made for God's glory. Have you ever thought about what that is? It's pretty cool. We throw that word around a lot, glory. But here's what it actually means. In the Old Testament, the word for glory is actually a word that means weight. When the Old Testament, which is what we're reading right now, talks about God's glory, it's talking about his weight. So it's talking about just the magnitude and the bigness and the majesty of who he is. It's talking about God is a force so big that nothing else can contend with him, right? It's talking about just the supremacy and the bigness of who God is. In the New Testament, it uses a little bit of a different word, but it's very similar. In the New Testament, the word for glory is a word that means light or brilliance. It's talking about God's radiance. It's talking about how God is so bright that he draws all attention and all eyes to him. Right? These words for God's glory are supposed to bring us focus, and they're supposed to produce awe in our hearts. Right? Because they are words that describe the bigness and the power and the supremacy of God. Glory, God's glory is all the perfections of who he is. His weight, his heaviness, his magnificence. We see shades of that in this life. You know, if you ever heard a song that just has a lyric that just makes you say, yes, you know, that's kind of what it's talking about, right? There's some weight there. There's some magnitude there. There's some glory. When Steph Curry swishes a three from half court, right? There's some glory there because there's just a sense of yes, man, there's something that's so just splendid about that just makes you want to celebrate when you eat good food, right? There's some glory there, right? There's just some, yes, this is right. You know, when you have a close, deep, intimate friendship, there's some glory there, right? But guys, of all these things, of all the small glories that might exist in the world, there's still always something missing. Because the basketball game's going to end. The burrito from Diego's is going to be clean pretty quick, right? Relationships come and go. And that's why I think anything that any weight or anything splendid or anything brilliant in this life, man, it comes and goes because it's ultimately supposed to point us to the one who truly has glory. It's ultimately supposed to point us to the one who truly has weight and majesty and splendor. And I think that when we indulge in the pleasures of the world, the reason why it never satisfies us is because those things are meant to point us. They're meant to point our mind and point our heart to bow to the ultimate glory. Even the universe itself. Think about this. I've actually got a picture up here. Is there any way we can turn the light out in here, Kevin? You go get that. I got a picture to kind of illustrate this. Psalm 19 says that the heavens declare. Says that the heavens declare the glory of God. I want you to look at this, right? Have you ever just been outside and thought about how small you are compared to the rest of creation, right? Well, that's the earth over here on the left, okay? So if you are somewhere on that map, like, you cannot be seen, right? You are such a small piece on that earth, right? Well, if you look to the right of the earth, that's the solar system that where our earth and lots of other planets are. You see the little red dot kind of in the center right? That's the earth in comparison to the solar system. If you look next to it, you see what's called an interstellar neighborhood. That's multiple solar systems that together make up this thing called an interstellar neighborhood. You see the little red dot like right in the middle? That's our solar system, right? Well, lots of interstellar neighborhoods make up what's called a galaxy. You guys have probably heard of the Milky Way, right? That picture on the far right up top, that's the Milky Way. That's the galaxy that we live in. And that little red dot in the bottom right corner is the interstellar neighborhood, which contains our solar system, which contains our Earth, which contains all the lakes and oceans and continents down to the city that we live in. Well, we'll keep going. Here's a galactic group down here on the bottom left. Right in the middle, you see the little red dot. That's the Milky Way galaxy. And you see all the other galaxies that are surrounding it. And then you've got a supercluster right next to it, right? The supercluster that our galactic group is in the middle of. And you see all the other galactic groups that make up a supercluster. And then you see this whole group of superclusters, and you see right in the middle. And then that picture on the bottom right, that's the observable universe. That is as far as human technology has ever allowed us to see. And right in the middle, you see a red dot that has that thing of superclusters. And you just keep working its way back. You can turn the lights on now. Guys, when you see that, when you see that picture of how small we are and how massive and how vast and how big our universe is, what are you thinking and what are you feeling when you see that? Do you understand that somebody made that? Do you understand that all the mass and all the weight and all the magnificence and all the brilliance that universe has? There is somebody who's weightier. There is somebody who made that and sustains that and rules that. And Psalm chapter 8 says, who is man that you are mindful of him? In the midst of all this vastness of creation, God is mindful of you. God knows you by name. Though you are one of 7 billion people on this one small planet, which is just a blip in a massive universe, God is mindful of you. And you are created for his glory. That means that you are made to display the weight of who God is. You are made to display the magnitude of who God is in a way that draws attention to him from the rest of the world. Every question in life, guys, I really do believe is ultimately a question about this. What glory is the heaviest? There's all this talk in the world right now about transgender bathrooms and about just kind of the identity struggle that's going on. Do you know what the issue under all that is? Is people asking this question: do I have enough glory? Do I have enough weight to decide who I really am? Am I the one who's in charge? Am I the one who has enough glory? Am I the one who has enough weight to decide what I really am? What about when you ask the question, man, like, why can't I be happy even if I get the dream job that I want? Even if I get that girl that I've always wanted? Why can't I still be happy? It's because there's not enough glory in that. There's not enough weight in it. Well, why can't I just do what I want to do in life? Why can't I just live my dreams and let God have a part of them? Guys, it's because God's too glorious for that. God is too big for that. You are made for His glory. You are made to display the greatness of who God is. And you cannot get away from that. And until we see Him as big as His word says that He is, we're just not going to get it. And so we're praying that you begin to grasp God's glory this summer. We're also praying that in becoming a son or daughter of the King and in grasping God's glory, it will transform the rest of your life and eternity. It will transform the rest of your life and eternity. You see, that this small view of God that lots of us have, this is what it's done. It has created a culture in which people think that they can call themselves Christians and still live however they want to live. It's created this culture in which people think that they can call themselves Christians and live a nice, quiet, simple, moral, church-going life without any affection for Jesus and any obedience to Jesus and any risk for Jesus and call themselves a Christian. It's created a culture in which people think that as long as I have done these things, that I can go sleep with whoever I want, drink however much I want, do whatever I want, because I'm cool with God. I'm a Christian. God's glory is too big for that. That's what a small, human, unbiblical view of God has created. And that's what we want to redeem. Because see, this guy Isaiah, he got that. The guy who's writing this book, this guy who's writing this passage that we talked about, he got that. In chapter 6, he talks about an experience that he had where he saw the Lord. And I want you to listen to this. We're almost done. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. There's the word. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. And one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar, and he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips.